For thousands of years, our ancestors have looked up into the night sky and marveled at the beauty and brilliance of the stars and the planets. They've worshipped some of them. They've used them for navigation. Or they've just enjoyed the romance of sitting under a night sky. But we might be the last generation that is able to do that. A little bit dramatic opening this week, but thank you for joining me in the Throw Forward studio as we think about the implications of a changing night sky. My name is Graeme Codrington, and this is episode 188 of Throw Forward Thursday. And in season 6, we are looking back at some of the predictions we've made and realizing the future is already here. Back in episode 40, we talked about space junk. And we've also talked about using mirrors in space to beam back the sun's rays to Earth to collect electricity. Both of these things are already becoming a reality in our world. The space junk issue is very real. In August of 2026, a massive 4-ton booster rocket from SpaceX, which had just been abandoned in orbit, spun out of orbit and smashed into the surface of the moon. It is, as far as we know, the 11th documented human crash onto the surface of the moon since the 1990s. Doesn't happen often, and it's never planned. It always just happens because, well, space junk has got to go somewhere. Now, of course, the moon is being hit all the time. I mean, it's full of craters because it's been hit by asteroids and space rocks and so on. So, we're not worried about the moon, but I think we are concerned that we don't want to turn it into a junkyard. As the number of satellites orbiting Earth is now increasing at an exponential rate. In the last 10 years with Elon Musk's SpaceX just putting up masses of satellites, mainly just so that some people can have better Wi-Fi coverage, we now have thousands and tens of thousands, and very soon it will be hundreds of thousands, and then millions of satellites will be in space for all sorts of reasons. And that is going to have a number of impacts. First of all, space junk. When those satellites go wrong, they either have to come back to Earth, hopefully being burnt up in the atmosphere, but sometimes debris gets through and, well, that's going to hurt, injure, and maybe do worse to people and property. The other option is they spin off into space, and some might crash on the moon. That's going to be a problem when we start putting things on the moon that are valuable, but I think it's already a problem. The moon is a shared human resource and not somebody's junkyard. But the other thing that's going to happen is that junk can hit into satellites that are doing a good job. Maybe it's a GPS satellite, maybe it's a communication satellite, maybe it is an object, space shuttle filled with astronauts and people. Maybe it's a future space hotel. We've talked about that before. But that space junk is going to be a problem, and we can't wait until it is so much of a problem, like our rivers and our oceans filled with junk, that it's too much for us to deal with. We need to legislate and deal with it now to stop it at its source. The other problem we're going to have is looking up at the night sky. If you've done that recently in the last year or two, you might have been able to see those satellites whizzing from horizon to horizon. They're just going to get more and more numerous. What happens if there are so many of them and there's so much light pollution from those orbiting satellites that we can no longer see the stars properly? Add to that all the pollution and light pollution we have on Earth, and there seriously is a possibility that our children or grandchildren might not be able to see the night sky as we did and recognize the constellations that I so eagerly learnt as a child. What a loss that would be, to just be able to look up and only see man-made satellites whizzing from horizon to horizon. What a shame that would be. We need more regulations. We need more control over what goes into space, what happens when it goes wrong, who is liable, and who has to clean up all the junk that is currently being created. Space junk. It's not a future prediction anymore. It's a real and current reality, and it deserves our attention. It deserves some policy to be created for the good of all mankind, as they say in space. Thank you for joining me in the future. Thank you for joining me in the world of today as we think about how our world is changing. I'll see you next time in the Throw Forward studio.